Okay, good afternoon all.
Sir.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we will start.
सर ह्याच्या 2 स्लाइड अगोदर घ्या की.
ह्याच्या
हा तिथं डाऊट होता सर. म्हणजे ते रेड ऑरेंज कलर ते फ्लेम्स ते डिफरन्स नाही कळला सर त्यांचा, त्यामुळे.
रेड ऑरेंज कलर म्हणजे तिथं म्हणजे इथं म्हणताय का तुम्ही?
हा ह्यातच.
हा हा हा. ते म्हणजे त्यावेळेला फ्लेम तुम्ही ज्यावेळेला गॅस आपण फ्लेम तयार करतो त्यावेळेला आतल्या बाजूला एक तयार होतो फ्लेम आणि बाहेर एक तयार होतो त्याचे कलर दिलेले आहेत. त्याचे कलर जे आहे ते ऑक्सिजन आणि ऍसिडिटीचं प्रमाण ज्यावेळेला आपण कमी जास्त करतो त्यानुसार ते दिलेले आहेत. ज्यावेळेला न्यूट्रल फ्लेम असते त्यावेळेला आतल्या बाजूला हा जो इनर कोन आहे हा व्हाईट कलरचा असतो. ओके, म्हणजे हे तसे तयार होतात.
ओके सर.
हा, आणि त्यावेळेला बाहेर ब्ल्यू कलरचा असतो. ज्या वेळेला ही कार्बोरायझिंग फ्लेम असते म्हणजे ज्या वेळेला आपण ऍसिटिलीनचं प्रमाण वाढवतो त्यावेळेला तर ही जी फ्लेम आहे त्या फ्लेम कमी जास्त होतात. पहिल्या सुरुवातीला ज्यावेळेला आपण फक्त पेटवतो त्यावेळेला फक्त असा जाळ असतो, परंतु ज्या वेळेला आपण तो एकदम प्रिसाइज करतो त्यावेळेला तिथं फायर क्रिएट होते. फायर म्हणजे फोर्सफुली ज्याला आपण म्हणतो. ओके, अशी चुलीमध्ये असणारा जो जाळ आहे आपला ती एक फायर आहे. ओके.
येस सर.
आणि दुसरी गोष्ट म्हणजे तुम्ही तो भाता बघितलाय पूर्वी असायचा बघा.
नो सर.
म्हणजे तिथं आपले कुऱ्हाड वगैरे जे काही आपले धारदार वस्तू आहेत त्याला धार लावण्यासाठी भाता वापरला जातो. त्यांना गरम करण्यासाठी.
ओके सर.
ओके, हा. ते कशासाठी केलं जातं तर त्याच्यावरती हवा मारल्यामुळे ते जे जाळ आहे ती जे हीट आहे ते आपण फोर्सफुली त्याच्यावरती मारतो जेणेकरून तिथे काय होतंय लवकर त्याचं टेम्परेचर इन्क्रीज होतंय. फास्ट टेम्परेचर इन्क्रीज होतं.
सर म्हणजे स्टोव्ह सारखं का?
हा, स्टोव्ह सारखं. करेक्ट, व्हेरी गुड एक्झाम्पल आदित्य. नाईस एक्झाम्पल. स्टोव्ह सारखं
Thanks.
थोडक्यात. ओके, स्टोव्ह मध्ये जर तुम्ही बघितलं तर फक्त जाळ असत नाही, तो फोर्सफुली असल्यासारखा असतो, त्याच्यामुळं हीट आपल्याला जास्त प्रमाणामध्ये मिळते. ओके.
ओके सर, थँक्यू.
So we are actually we'll start recording this. So we are in this chapter. Your division is lagging somewhat because other two divisions are in the third chapter. Okay, no problem. So here we have seen joining processes. In joining processes we have in previous lectures we have covered arc welding, which is generally used for heavy joints. Then in railways, in automobiles, okay, in building structures we can use this arc welding. After that we have seen gas welding. So gas welding is mostly used when we do not have it is for the barrels or somewhat boilers. Okay, when we require to cover join the sheet metals, at that time we can use this gas welding. So for gas welding we do not require electric current. Then next one is the resistance welding. So this one is the actual machine for the resistance welding. Now resistance welding is a very simple welding process which do not require resistance welding comes under this is the spot welding machine. Okay, this machine is spot welding machine. Is this visible?
Yes sir.
Yes sir. This one is the spot welding machine. Here this is the transformer. Okay, then these two are electrodes. This one is the first one, and this is second one. I can say I will write first and second, where this first electrode, or we can say upper electrode, okay, we can consider or say it as upper electrode. That upper electrode is moving electrode. It means it can move, okay, in downward direction and again in upward direction, okay. And the lower electrode, this electrode is fixed electrode. This second number was the fixed electrode, okay. And this one is movable. Movable electrode. Here we have paddle. Paddle. So this one is the paddle. This is the paddle is
Yes, sir.
which is
Yes,
foot
sir.
operated. Okay, this paddle is foot operated. Now what happened? This one is the resistance welding where we provide the current. Okay, we provide the current, but here we are not melting the workpiece. As previously in arc welding and gas welding, we are melting the workpiece, we are melting the electrode or filler metal, and then we allow to cool this joint. Correct?
Yes, sir.
But here we do not require filler metal also, and we are not going to melt the workpiece. We are converting this workpiece up to its plastic level. It means at start, when we have starting joining process, at that time I told you that there are two types of process. First one is the fusion process, okay, where we are melting the metal, and by melting metal we are conducting that joining process. And another process is the plastic welding. So plastic welding, we are not going to melt the metal, but we are going to convert the metal into its plastic state, and by applying pressure, we are making the joints. Okay. Now, in this diagram, this one is the actual machine. Okay. So here we supply the electric current. For example, suppose here we supply electric current. When we apply force on that paddle, at that time, the current will flow from this copper rod. These are generally made from the copper, generally or mostly these are made from the copper material. So this is the copper rod. So the current flow through that copper rod, and when we apply pressure on that paddle, this copper rod move in the downward direction, and it touches to this lower electrode. Get it up to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as it touches to the lower electrode, when it touches to that lower electrode, current will flow from lower electrode to the transformer. So this will be the one circuit when there is no workpiece. Okay, the current will flow from upper electrode to lower electrode, and again transformer. When we apply again pressure, so again it is converted. Why that transformer is required? So it is required to give abrupt current. Okay, abrupt required current to convert that workpiece into the plastic state. Okay, so here mostly this one is used for plastic sheet metals, mostly for the sheet metals. Sheet metals means,
सर
yes,
इथं प्लास्टिक स्टेट म्हणजे प्लास्टिक इतकं थिन का त्याच्या इतकं मतलब ते मोडू शकतो इतकं?
no. Plastic it means मोडू शकत नाही, पण ते असं थोडंसं मराठीमध्ये काय असं पातळ होतं थोडं. कुठलंही मेटल आपण थोडंसं म्हणजे असं गरम केलं तर मोल्ट व्हायच्या अगोदर, म्हणजे पूर्ण वितळायच्या अगोदर ते थोडासा लूज पडतं थोडक्यात. ओके, प्लास्टिकची बॉटल तुम्ही तापवायला लागला जाळावर घातला तर तुम्हाला बघा ती थोडीशी लूज झाल्यासारखी दिसेल,
येस
मग ती वितळायला चालू होते.
येस सर.
बरोबर आहे. तर त्याच्या अगोदरची जी लूज जी पडत आहे त्याला आपण प्लास्टिक स्टेट म्हणतो.
ओके सर.
So it requires near about 24 degrees Celsius, 2400 degrees Celsius or more than this. Okay, the range will be different for that. If the material changes, the melting point or it convert to the plastic state, it will changes. Okay, but this is mostly used for the sheet metals. Sheet metals means patra, mostly to join two sheet metals. So how it happens? If suppose these are the two sheet metals, if I keep together and if I have to make joint here, what I'll do, I will move this point under this electrode or I will keep here. Okay, then I'll press on that paddle with the foot, and when I press on that paddle, the current will supply from this upper electrode. But here the sheet metal having different material. Okay, sheet metal having different material, due to that resistance will create to that flow of current. Resistance will create to flow of this current. Up to that it is okay, understood?
Yes sir.
Yes sir.
If there is no workpiece, the current will flow as it is. If I insert workpiece, then it will create resistance because material is different. Workpiece material is different one, and that electrode material is different. So resistance will create, and due to that resistance is created in such a manner that it allows that workpiece to convert into its plastic state. And then we apply some pressure on that so that two metals join together. And it required fraction of seconds, or we can say seconds, not fraction of seconds. Fraction of we required some seconds to create such a joint, and also it will not take longer time to cool also. जसं आर्क वेल्डिंग मध्ये, गॅस वेल्डिंग मध्ये कूल करण्यासाठी आपल्याला परत 15, 20, 30 मिनिट ठेवावं लागतं, बरोबर आहे?
येस सर.
तसं
Yes,
या
sir.
प्रोसेस मध्ये आपल्याला करावं लागत नाही. ओके, another thing here, smoke will not produce. Here smoke will not produce, but in arc welding, in gas welding, smokes will produce, which is hazardous to the operator. Okay, get it? Is anyone having any doubt?
No
No
sir.
sir.
Okay, so I'll show you video of that. Similar seam weldings are there. Under resistance welding, two weldings are there. First one is the spot welding and another one is the seam welding. Okay, for example, if suppose I have to make joint throughout here like this total, at that time I can use seam welding, but for our syllabus they have added only spot welding. Okay, so I will tell once again in Marathi also. हे पहा, ही एक मशीन आहे, हा ट्रान्सफॉर्मर आहे. ओके, याच्या आतमध्ये हा ट्रान्सफॉर्मर अशा प्रकारे, ट्रान्सफॉर्मर कशासाठी आहे तर त्याला जो एकाच वेळेला आपल्याला जो लागणारा करंट आहे प्लास्टिक स्टेट मध्ये नेण्यासाठी, तो एकदम देण्यासाठी त्याच्यामध्ये तशी अरेंजमेंट केलेली आहे ट्रान्सफॉर्मर मध्ये. ओके, पण आपला फोकस या ट्रान्सफॉर्मर वरती नाही, तो इलेक्ट्रिकलचा भाग आहे. सो वी आर हिअर. आपण इथं पाहतोय, ज्या वेळेला मी इथं एक पायामध्ये एक पॅडल दिलेला आहे, त्या पॅडल वरती ज्या वेळेला मी फोर्स अप्लाय करतो, पायाने दाबतो, त्यावेळेला याच्यामधून करंट फ्लो होतो आणि तो करंट या खालच्या रॉड मधून परत माघारी ट्रान्सफॉर्मरला जातो. ओके
सर, याचा यूज काय?
जॉईनिंग करण्यासाठी शीट मेटल्स,
येस.
दोन पत्रे जॉईंट करण्यासाठी, परत कुठेतरी छोटे छोटे रिवेट असतात ते जॉईंट करायचे असतील, तर त्या ठिकाणी आपण ही जॉईनिंग प्रोसेस वापरू. खूप ठिकाणी तुम्हाला ही बघायला मिळेल जॉईनिंग प्रोसेस. ज्या ज्या ठिकाणी तुम्हाला पत्र्याचे असे गोलाकार इन्स्ट्रुमेंट्स आहेत, डिव्हाइसेस तयार केलेले आहेत, त्या ठिकाणी तुम्हाला हे बघायला मिळेल. ओके, हे एकदम फास्ट प्रोसेस आहे. ज्यावेळेला याच्यामधून करंट फ्लो होतो असा, आणि आपण जर याच्यामध्ये वर्कपीस मध्ये पकडला तर त्या वर्कपीस मुळे इथं काय क्रिएट होतो, रेझिस्टन्स क्रिएट होतो करंटच्या फ्लोला, ज्यामुळे हे जे वर्कपीस आहे हे प्लास्टिक स्टेट मध्ये कन्वर्ट होते हीट जनरेट झाल्यामुळे. आणि या ठिकाणी आपण परत पायाने हा प्रेशर अप्लाय करत असल्यामुळे तो प्लास्टिक स्टेट मध्ये होतं आणि ते दोन पत्रे एकमेकाला त्या पॉइंट पुरते जॉईन होतात. असे कितीही पॉइंट आपण जॉईन करू शकतो, किती ठिकाणी पाहिजे तिथं जॉईन करू शकतो. म्हणजे ऍज कम्पेअर्ड टू अदर जॉईनिंग प्रोसेसेस, दिस प्रोसेस इज व्हेरी फास्ट प्रोसेस. देन इट डज नॉट रिक्वायर दॅट मच स्किल. म्हणजे तुम्हाला जर एक 5-10 मिनिटं सांगितलं ही कशी वापरायची मशीन, तर तुम्हीही ती करू शकता. म्हणजे आपण तुमच्या म्हणजे नवीन माणूस आहे, त्याला स्किल नाही काही, आणि त्याला थोडंसं शिकवलं तरी त्याच्यावरती तो वर्क करू शकतो. ओके.
Yes, sir.
So we will see videos where we get some more. I have to use.
सर त्या वर्कपीस आणि इलेक्ट्रोडची प्रॉपर्टी सेम असल्यावरती ते मग करंट त्यातून फ्लो होणार का, ते पण तिथं तसंच प्लास्टिक हे करत
नाही
बसणार?
नाही, प्रॉपर्टीज तेच असल्या, मटेरियल तेच असल्यानंतर रेजिस्टन्स तेवढं क्रिएटच होणार नाही ना, तेवढं रेजिस्टन्स क्रिएट होणार नाही तिथं, आणि रेजिस्टन्स तेवढं क्रिएट नाही झालं की तिथं जॉईंट होणार नाही. तुमचा क्वेश्चन अगदी बरोबर आहे. जर समजा कॉपरच्याच 2 प्लेट असतील, बरोबर आहे ना, तुम्हाला असंच म्हणायचं आहे?
येस सर, येस सर.
जर 2 प्लेट कॉपरच्याच असतील तर मग काय करायचं, पण 2 प्लेट कॉपरच्याच असतील तर त्याचा जॉईंट नाही होणार तसा. व्हिडिओज wait for 1 second. खूपच विंडो ओपन झालेला आहे. 2 मिनिटं मी थोडा कमी करतो, मग ते दिसत नाही. See this? So this one is the resistance welding. Whether audio is
No, sir.
no audio. Okay. Okay, I will stop. And once again.
Spot
Now?
welding. 2.
आवाज
Seam
येतोय
welding.
व्हिडिओचा?
Spot
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Spot welding is also known as the resistance spot welding process.
So please
It is
listen
used to
carefully.
weld
You will
thin
get
sheets of metal together by applying
idea
pressure.
about
The
working
heat
of this
required
spot
for
welding.
welding is generated by resistance to the flow of current through the electrode.
This is very simple.
Working principle. The welding
working.
electrodes are made up of copper, which is a good conductor of electricity. The movable and fixed electrodes of the spot welding machine are held in pressure on either side of a pair of plates to be welded together. As the current passes, it experiences the resistance between the electrode and workpiece contact and generates heat. This heat causes the interface of the workpiece in contact with another workpiece to melt, and pressure fuses the two metals, thus forming a solid bond. If you are enjoying this video, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you are new to ADTW Learn, Click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification to get more informative videos like this. Equipment required: spot welding machine, tongs, also known as electrodes. Working of spot welding. When the power is turned on, the transformer supplies the low voltage high current to the electrodes made up of copper. These electrodes are held in pressure against the pair of workpieces to be spot welded with the help of tongs. The current flows from the tongs to the electrodes, as copper is the good conductor of electricity but faces resistance at the point of contact between the two workpieces. This resistance generates the heat at metal-to-metal interface and causes the two metals in contact to melt. Then the pressure causes the molten metal to fuse together, and thus a solid bond is formed. Application of spot welding. Spot welding is used for welding thin sheets together. In the manufacturing of fuel tanks, joining vehicle body parts, radiators, wire ends, etc. Advantages of spot welding. The process can be automated. The process is simpler. No filler metal is required. Low or no fumes is generated. The high welding rate is possible. Limitations of the spot welding process. The initial cost is high. Low strength due to discontinuous weld. The process is limited to the thickness of the metal. Seam welding. In seam welding, the workpiece is supported on both sides by a pair of electrodes. These electrodes are in the form of rollers to produce a continuous weld on the workpiece. Continuous spot welding is known as seam welding. The working principle of seam
This one is
welding
the seam
similar to
welding,
that of resistance spot welding.
which is similar to
Equipment
that
are
spot welding.
components used in the process. Seam welding machine and roller electrodes. Working of seam welding. When the power is turned on, the transformer supplies the low voltage high current to the roller electrodes. Made up of conductive materials. These roller electrodes support the pair of workpieces to be welded together. When the rollers are made to contact the workpiece, the current flows easily through the roller electrodes with a low resistance, but experiences a high resistance at the metal-to-metal interface, that is between the upper plate and lower plate to be joined. Thus high resistance to the flow of current, offered by the pair of workpiece, raises the temperature to the fusion point between the workpiece interface, and a weld is generated in the form of a nugget. Nugget is a weld between the two workpiece interfaces. Application of seam welding process. Welding of transformer, paint containers. Welding of gasoline tanks. Automobile mufflers. Welding of sheet metal tanks. Advantages of seam welding. It can generate a leak-proof weld. The production rate is high. Dissimilar metals can be welded together. No filler metal or flux is needed. The processes can be automatic or semi-automatic. It is possible to weld thin metal sheets with this process. A semi-skilled person can also produce a good weld. Limitations of seam welding. The welding process is suitable for thin sheets only up to a thickness of 3 mm. Since the electrodes are in the form of rollers, they can weld only along a straight line or well-curved path. The process is limited to the lap joints. I hope you have understood resistance welding and its types. It takes lots of effort.
Have you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the animation. Now I will show you video in industry. Okay, one video we have from the industry. So how they will do. One second. Video this way.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now you can observe here how in industry this resistance welding machine works, or spot welding. Now see that. See, this one is the another operation. Okay, understood?
Yes, sir.
So this one is the resistance welding, which is used to make some light joints. Okay, if you want to join some structure, some it's about lip spring of the truck. Have you seen lip spring? Yes. लिप स्प्रिंग बघितलंय का? त्याला आपण पाटा म्हणतो, पाटा. ट्रॉलीला वगैरे खाली असतो बघा.
Yes, sir.
तर तशाच स्प्रिंग आपल्याला ती जर तुटली आणि ती जर जोडायची असेल तर आपण त्या ठिकाणी रेजिस्टन्स वेल्डिंगचा यूज करू शकत नाही, कारण याने फक्त जे लाईट जॉईंट्स आपल्याला करायचे आहेत तयार तेवढेच आपण याने करू शकतो. ओके, नाऊ diagram, we have to see diagram from the Google. One second. कारण ती मशीनची डायग्राम काढून काय उपयोग नाही. Is this visible to you?
Yes, sir.
So you can draw this diagram. Okay, simple diagram is there. I have chosen very simple diagram, so you can easily draw this diagram. One more, this one is also a nice diagram, but the previous one is good. Okay, this one is okay, so you can draw it easily.
Yes, sir.
So write heading resistance welding. In resistance welding there are two types, spot welding and the seam welding. After that, spot welding, and then draw this diagram. After completion of this diagram, please tell me. कोणाला काही शंका असतील तर विचारत चला. Draw diagrams neatly. So it will help you in offline question papers or theoretical to write answer paper for theoretical question papers. So for that, these diagrams are very important.
झाली सर.
ओके, झाली सगळ्यांची? हा ठीक आहे.
सर लेझर वेल्डिंग पण असतंय काय?
हा असते ना लेझर वेल्डिंग पण. लेझर रेज सोडल्या जातात आणि त्याच्यापासून वेल्डिंग केलं जातं. लेझरने मेटल कटिंग सुद्धा केलं जातं. मोस्टली मेटल कटिंग साठी वापरलं जातं.
येस सर.
हे आता जे घेतलं आपण हे कसं आहे, कमी स्किल लागतं याला, वर्क फास्ट होतं याचं, या रेजिस्टन्स वेल्डिंग मुळे. पण याचे लिमिटेशन्स पण आहेत, म्हणजे एवढा स्ट्रॉंग जॉईंट तयार होत नाही. दुसरी गोष्ट, जे हेवी मेटल्स आहेत ते आपण इथे जॉईंट करू शकत नाही. मी व्हिडिओ मध्ये पाहिलं 3 मिलीमीटर पर्यंत शीट मेटल आपण फक्त जॉईंट करू शकतो. त्याच्यावर जर आपण जॉईंट करायचं म्हटलं तर तेवढा रेजिस्टन्स क्रिएट होत नाही. झालं?
हा सर, कम्प्लीट.
Okay. So again we will proceed to the. Now these are the advantages and disadvantages that you have to write. So first advantage, no filler metal required. High production rates possible. Lends itself to mechanization and automation. म्हणजे आपण याचं ऑटोमेशन करू शकतो. ऑपरेटर स्किल लेवल, म्हणजे याला ऑपरेटर स्किल लागत नाही एवढं. गुड रिपीटॅबिलिटी अँड रिलायबिलिटी आहे. रिलायबिलिटी म्हणजे जास्त दिवस टिकते. And what are the disadvantages? High initial equipment cost, then limited to lap joints for most resistance welding processes. So write these all advantages, disadvantages.
कम्प्लीट सर.
ओके, झालं बाकीच्यांचे?
सर्व
हा ठीक आहे. ओके, टेक युअर टाइम.
complete, sir.
So with this, that resistance welding is completed here. Now we are moving to another type of welding. So as we seen before that arc welding and gas welding for heavy joining processes, we are using that arc welding and the gas welding. But for small joining processes, okay, it is not required always to join big metals. Okay, sometimes we have to join some small particles, small metals also. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. At that time, we have to choose another joining processes. Okay. For example, this one is the soldering. Have you heard about the soldering? Soldering is the process which is mostly used in electronic, what we can say, in
Yes,
in electronics, joining of electronic parts. So soldering is a method of joining similar or dissimilar metals by the application of heat and using a filler metal or alloys called solder, whose melting temperature is below 450 degrees Celsius. Okay, so soldering, it means we have some own soldering gun. How many of you have soldering? Can you raise your hands? So no one seen that soldering. Okay. So when we are going to see videos, at that time you maybe remember. Okay, Kunal have seen already. Okay. Others have not seen. Okay. Kunal, please down your hand.
सर तेच का सर जे लहान रोबोट्सचे वायरिंग नीट करायला वापरतात तेच का?
Yeah, correct. This one. Correct. तेच. मी तुम्हाला त्याचे छोटेसे डायग्राम दाखवतो, मी तुमच्या लक्षात येईल. Now see here.
yes, sir.
So this one is the soldering gun. We call it as soldering gun or iron. Okay. When we supply current to that soldering gun, okay, it will create heat at the tip of that iron, and which can melt only the filler metal, not base metal. Okay, this is very important difference between that soldering and brazing. Okay, soldering and brazing, it is used for small jobs. Okay, and the difference between arc welding.
सर्किट जॉईन करताना पण वापर.
Yeah, correct. This is circuit. It means
डागणी म्हणतात ना त्याला?
yes. डागणी
डागणी
हा.
म्हणतात ना याला मराठी भाषेत आपल्या?
या मराठी भाषेत आपण याला डागणी म्हणतो. याला डागणी का म्हणतो याचं कारण असं आहे, आता हे आपण याला सोल्डरिंग म्हणतोय, बट बिफोर फ्यू इयर्स वेन देर इज नो करंट, वेन देर इज नो दॅट सोल्डरिंग गन, at that time we are using some tools which heat, okay, which we are going to heat at some certain temperature near about 300-400 degrees Celsius, and we take that filler metal on that tip of that metal, and where we require to join this, at that point we keep that. Okay, so we call this as डागणी. मराठीमध्ये आपण त्याला डाग देणे म्हणतो थोडक्यात.
Yes, sir.
हा, मराठीमध्ये त्याला डाग देणे म्हणतो. पण डाग देणे कधी, ज्या वेळेला ते आपण हे सोल्डरिंग गन नव्हती, आणि अजून पण आपण त्याला डाग देणेच म्हणतो थोडक्यात. ठीक आहे, मराठीमध्ये. अजून पण बऱ्याच ठिकाणी जर तुम्ही गेलात तर काय जण असे आहेत जिथं म्हणजे जॉईंट करायचं असेल तर एक इक्विपमेंट आहे छोटस, ते तापवलं जातं गॅसवरती, स्टोव्ह वरती. ठीक आहे, आणि ते गरम केलेलं आहे जे फिलर मेटलला लावलं जातं, आणि त्याचं फिलर मेटल जॉईंट करण्यासाठी वापरलं जातं. सो आय वॉन्ट टू टेल हिअर दॅट what is the difference between the arc welding and gas welding, sorry, arc welding and soldering. Okay, in both these both are the joining processes. Arc welding is used for heavy joining processes and soldering is for light joining processes. But in arc welding, both workpiece and filler rod both get melted. Okay, understood? Both that workpiece, that is, or the edge of that workpiece, not total workpiece, but that edge of workpiece where we want to make the joint and the filler metal both get melted, and after that we are allowed to join come together. Get it? But in soldering, we are not going to melt the base metal or the workpiece. Here, we are going to melt only a filler metal. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
as we are using this joining process up to 450 degrees Celsius, it means we are using filler metal which is having low melting point. So mainly here you can see lead and tin, lead tin combination filler metal, or that wire. Have you seen that wire?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll
Yes,
show
sir.
you. If suppose I have one second. If somebody have not seen that, they also learn this. Okay, here is the diagram. Here is the picture. It is not diagram actually. This one is the picture. दिसते तुम्हाला?
Yes.
Yes.
So this
Yes,
one
sir.
is
Yes,
the
sir.
soldering gun. This one is the soldering gun, and this is the wire of filler metal. So which is having combination of lead and tin. Okay. If you want precise soldering, if you want precise joining process, at that time we are going to see how much percentage of lead and how much percentage of tin we have to choose. But generally, that's in local market. In local market, the soldering we are not choosing that. Okay. का तुम्ही कधी गेलाय इथं लोकल मार्केटमध्ये आणि त्यांनी बघितलंय तुमचं जे काय आपल्याला जॉईंट करायचं आहे त्याचं मेटल कोणतं आहे आणि आपण मग टीन आणि लीड किती किती पर्सेंटचं वापरलं पाहिजे असं काय बघितलेलं तुम्ही तुमच्या लक्षात आहे का याच्या अगोदर कधी?
No, sir.
जे आहे अवेलेबल ते
No, sir.
वापरलं जातं म्हणजे त्याचा एवढा जास्त फरक पडत नाही. बट इफ यू हॅव टू मेक सम प्रिसाइज जॉईंट्स, इट मीन्स इन प्रिसाइज म्हणजे एकदम ज्याला आपण काय म्हणतो क्वालिटेटिव्ह. ओके, क्वालिटेटिव्ह जॉईंट जर तुम्हाला हवे असतील तर यू हॅव टू चूज दॅट कॉम्बिनेशन ॲज पर द वर्क पीस. ओके, दिस प्रोसेस इज व्हेरी सिम्पल. डाग देणे, आय हॅव वन डायग्राम हियर. सी. Okay, have you seen here soldering gun? Have you observed here any soldering gun? Yes.
No, sir.
No, but this one is the
Yes, sir.
soldering iron which is heated and it is used, and this one is the handle. So in this process we do not require electric current. Okay, understood? So this is also a soldering process. त्याला आपण डाग देणे म्हणतो. ठीक आहे. So this one is the soldering process. So soldering process is a very simple process. After some practice you can also do that processes. So soldering obtains a good joint between the two plates. The strength of the joint is limited by the strength of the filler metal used. Soldering is used for obtaining a leak-proof joint or a low-resistance electric joint. The purpose of using the flux is to prevent the formation of oxides on the metal surface when the same is heated. So we are not mostly in locally we are not using that flux for the soldering. Am I right? So this is the simple diagram of soldering. So this is the operation of soldering. Okay, how step by step soldering can be done. So the shaping and fitting of metal parts together. It means when we have to do soldering operation, at that time, if suppose these two plates are here, okay, like this, and another plate is here, which is having straight surface. So the first process is that if I want to join these two plates, this one is the first one, this is first plate, and this one is second. So if I have to join these joints, whether this shape of this plate and this plate is similar?
No.
No, sir.
No. So what happened when I add filler metal here in between these two? So that filler metal cannot create joint if there is a gap or the big gap in between two plates. So for that, what I have to do, I have to finish this surface like this one. So that after finishing, the plate should be keep very minimum difference or distance, not difference, distance in between these two. Okay, now I can create joint with the soldering. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So the shaping and
Yes, sir.
fitting of metal parts together is very important for the soldering, because soldering having its own limitations. Okay, cleaning of surfaces, then we have to clean the surface, okay, where we have to create joint. At that point we have to clean that surface, then we have to apply the flux, and then by application of heat and solder we can create the joint. Have you understood soldering process step by step?
Yes, sir.
Now another process
Yes, sir.
is,
सर
yes,
सर ते सोनारा पसली टाकणी मशीन आणि आपल्या ह्या दोन्ही सोल्डिंग मशीन मध्ये काय फरक आहे सर?
soldering machine is the different one, and that whatever you have seen, this machine is the brazing machine. आता जे आपण सोनाराकडे बघणार आहोत ती पुढची आहे, ती म्हणजे ही
ओके
ब्रेझिंग. कारण सोनाराकडे तुम्ही जे बघता त्याच्यामध्ये फायर क्रिएट केला जातो. जनरली तिथे ऍसिटिलीन वगैरे नाही, एलपीजी गॅस यूज केला जातो सोनाराकडे, बरोबर आहे ना?
चला ना सर.
लिक्विड पेट्रोलियम गॅस यूज केला जातो बऱ्याच ठिकाणी, जसं मी बघितलंय त्याच्यानुसार. But for example, why it is necessary, if there is gas welding, why brazing is required? To create, if we have to join that golden metal, if golden chain is there, and if we are using, or if we want to join with the gas welding process, what will happen?
It's damage.
Yeah, the chain will damage. Okay, so we cannot use that gas welding process here. So the brazing process is a very simple process. It is same as that of gas welding. Okay, here are different brazings are welding types. There are different types of the brazings. Okay, so first one is the torch. So here this one is the torch brazing process. Okay, then another one is the furnace. For example, this is the furnace. Okay, and if I have to join here another metal, in brazing also we are not going to melt the base metal. Okay, we are melting only a filler metal. Understood?
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay, now see, in furnace also, if suppose this is one plate, and another plate I have made like this, and if I have to create joint, I will add filler metal simple here. इथं मी फिलर मेटल फक्त ठेवतो असं, आणि ही जी टोटल जो काय वर्क पीस आणि फिलर मेटल आहे ते याच्यामधून या फर्नेस मधून या बाजूने आतमध्ये नेतो आणि या बाजूने बाहेर काढतो. सो व्हॉट विल हॅपन हियर, when it moves in the furnace, that filler metal get melted and it will suck into the that what we can say gap due to the capillary action. Okay, and it will create one joint. So this one is the furnace brazing process. Okay, another brazing process there is chemical brazing process. Okay, but we don't want to go in that much deep. So this one is the simple brazing process. Have you understood this?
Yes, sir.
This brazing process is same as like gas welding. This is the brazing process, which is work above 500 to 900 degrees Celsius. Okay, so I will show you one or two videos. We can understand. Soldering. Okay, is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So see here, this one is the soldering gun, this is the stand, this one is the IC circuit.
सर ते सोल्डर अल्युमिनियमचं असते ना सर ते फिलिंग मेटल
No, it is lead or mixture of lead and tin. It looks like
Okay, sir.
aluminum.
येस सर
So this one is the IC circuit. If I want to join this IC circuit, the capacitor resistance on the IC circuit, and if I use that arc welding here, okay, what will be the result? Do you understood my question? Hello.
नो सर
जर या आयसी प्लेटला जोडण्यासाठी इथं हे रेजिस्टर आहे, हे कॅपॅसिटर आहे, हे जर जोडण्यासाठी मी आर्क वेल्डिंगचा वापर केला इथे, तर काय होईल?
खराब
सर
होणार.
ते बसणारच नाही ना खराब होईल सर
बस्ट होणारच सर ते सगळं खराब होईल.
ते आयसी सर्किट जे आहे, इंटिग्रेटेड सर्किट म्हणतो आपण त्याला, ते पूर्णपणे जळून जाईल. बरोबर आहे. म्हणून
येस सर
इथं आपण आर्क वेल्डिंग वापरू शकत नाही. म्हणजे वेगवेगळ्या जॉईनिंग प्रोसेस कशासाठी, तर याचं हे एक्झाम्पल आहे थोडक्यात. ओके, resistor, capacitor. I don't know all parts because these are from the electronics. Some part I can recognize. So this is also a very simple process. So this one is the brazing process now. Torch brazing. As we are using torch here, this one is the flame, and here we are melting only filler metal. have one more video related to this. This the video. This is related to brazing mostly. Okay, mainly related to
Brazing
brazing
is a
process.
type of fusion welding process which is similar to gas welding, yet different. Usually in most welding procedures, the base metal is also melted along with the filler metal. This does not occur in brazing. Here, only the filler material is melted.
Can you
In
hear?
brazing, the filler metal, which is also known
Sound of
as
the
the
video?
brazing metal,
Yes,
has
sir.
a melting temperature above
Yes, sir.
50 degrees centigrade, but it is below the melting point of the base metal. There are many types of brazing that are generally available. Each of these types has a specific application. The first type of brazing we will be talking about today is
So such a
torch
type of
brazing.
torch used.
In torch brazing, a flux is applied
कोणाच्या
to the
दुकानात पण तुम्ही
surfaces to
बघितला
be
असेल तसा
brazed.
torch.
A torch is used to direct a flame against the workpiece and towards the joint. An oxygen-starved flame is typically used to prevent oxidation on the workpiece. Once the joint areas have reached suitable temperature, the filler wire is added. Due to the high temperature, the filler wire melts and creates a joint. The torch, which is used in brazing, is similar to the ones used in gas welding. The fuels used in the torch vary based on the type of workpiece and filler used. Acetylene is used if the filler or workpiece has very high temperature tolerance, as acetylene burns at almost 3000 degrees centigrade. The torch brazing is mostly performed manually. The skill of the workers is crucial, as they must be employed to control the flame, manipulate the handheld torch, and also properly judge the temperature of the flame. This is done to ensure that a proper joint is obtained. Next is furnace brazing. In this type of brazing, a furnace is used to supply heat for brazing and is used to mass produce parts. It is suited for medium to high production rates of components. In furnace brazing, the parts and the brazing metal are loaded into the furnace. They are then heated to brazing temperature. This melts the brazing metal, which fuses the joints. The workpiece is then cooled and removed. The next type of brazing is dip brazing. In dip brazing, a molten salt bath or a molten metal bath is used as a heat source. The workpiece and the brazing metal are immersed in the molten bath. The molten salt bath generally has a molten mixture of fluxing ingredients, whereas in the metal bath method, the filler material which is used to join the workpiece is the heating medium. The molten metal is drawn into the joint by capillary action during submersion. Dip brazing method is generally used in places where the workpiece has a lot of joints. So, by dipping it in salt or metal baths, it is much easier to fuse the joints faster. The next type of brazing is called braze welding. Braze welding is somewhat similar to gas welding, where a filler wire is used to join two or more pieces of material. In gas welding, both the base metal and the filler are melted and then fused together on solidifying. Whereas in braze welding, the joint consists only of filler metal. This is because the base metal does not melt and therefore is not fused to the joint as in conventional fusion welding processes. Braze welding is most commonly used in repair work of pipes, beams, etc. Brazing has several advantages when compared to welding. Any metal can be joined with the help of brazing, including dissimilar metals, whereas this is not possible in most welding types. A few brazing methods like furnace brazing and dip brazing can be performed quickly and consistently. This permits very high production rates and allows the process to be automated. Some methods also allow for multiple joints to be brazed at the same time. Brazing can be applied to join thin parts which cannot be welded. This is normally done by infrared brazing, where an infrared lamp is used to generate heat. Brazing in general also requires lesser heat and power than most fusion welding processes. But the downside to these advantages is that the strength of the brazed joints is lesser than the welded joints. Brazing cannot be used to join components which are required to operate at locations with high temperature. This is due to the low melting temperature of brazing metals. Another intriguing disadvantage of brazing is that the color of the brazing metal and the base metal might not match sometimes. This might not be aesthetically pleasing at some places. Well, that's it guys, hope you understood what brazing is. We'll meet again in the next one. Till then.
Okay. समजलं?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
this
sir.
one is related to the soldering process and the brazing process. So soldering and brazing, these are the two joining processes where we melt only filler metal. And arc welding and the gas welding are the welding processes where we are melting both the filler metal as well as edges of the workpiece. In resistance welding, we are not going to melt filler metal, or we are not using filler metal in the resistance welding. Okay, and again, we are not going to melt the workpiece in resistance welding. Correct. So these are the 5 welding or joining processes. So I think we have to draw diagrams for this. One second, we will see if we have good diagram then. Okay, you can draw this diagram. Can you draw this diagram?
Yes.
Why? Don't
नाही
draw
काढ
this. नाही काढली नाही का? मला वाटलं
हा.
काढू शकत नाही.
नाही.
हा, सोल्डरिंगच्या अंडर ह्या डायग्राम काढा. ओके, ही सोल्डरिंग गन नाही काढायची गरज नाही, इथंच दाखवलं तरी चालतं. हे हँड पण काढायची गरज नाही, 2 हात जे काढलेत ना ते पण.
Yes, sir.
ओके, ड्रॉ दिस डायग्राम्स. व्यवस्थित काढा डायग्राम.
सर ह्याच्या हँडल पासलं फायबर सर जळत कसं का नाही सर ते जास्त गरम झाल्यावरती?
कारण ते फायबरकडे जळतच नाही. तर पुढे जे आहे ना, इथंच फक्त हीट जनरेट होते. पाठीमाग नाही हीट जनरेट होत.
येस सर, फक्त टोकाला होते माहितीये सर, बट तरी पण सर ते गरम नाही का होत जात वरतीपर्यंत? का तिथं काय लावलेलं असतं सर?
नाही, तिथं रेजिस्टन्स मटेरियल आहे, हीट रेजिस्टन्स मटेरियल आहे ते. तिथं जे हँडलला जे आहे ते हीट रेजिस्टन्स मटेरियल आहे. फॉर
Okay,
एक्झाम्पल, वायर मधून करंट फ्लो होत असेल आणि तुम्ही वायरला वरून जर पकडलं तरी आपल्याला करंट लागत नाही. ओके.
येस सर.
So that covering material is the resistance of not resistance actually, which prevent flow of current outside that cable. Similarly, this metal also, this material resistance to the heat. हे कुठल्यामध्ये होऊ शकतं? जे अगोदरचं मी बघितलं तुम्हाला दाखवलं, म्हणजे डाग देण्यासाठी जे वापरले जाते अगोदरचे, त्याच्यामध्ये तसं होत होतं. मग ते अगोदर काय फडक्यानं वगैरे मध्ये फडकं कापड धरावं लागत होतं, जास्त जर हीट झालं तर, किंवा थांबावं लागत होतं.
झालं सर.
झालं सर्वांचं? Others? Have you completed?
Yes, sir.
तर काढतच नाही तुम्ही.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Complete, sir.
So now one more diagram. This is the diagram for the brazing, torch welding. ब्रेझिंगच्या दोन डायग्राम काढा. ही एक काढा आणि मी अजून एक देणार आहे तुम्हाला. With this, we have completed the second chapter, that is manufacturing machine tools and joining processes. So in machine tools, we have seen two important machines, that is lathe machine and the drilling machine. Then we have seen, in that we have seen construction of the machines and what are the operations we can perform on the lathe machine and the drilling machine. After that, we have seen joining processes. So there are two different types of joining processes. First one is the permanent joining and second one is the temporary joining. In permanent joining, in our syllabus, we have arc welding, gas welding, then resistance welding, soldering, and brazing. For heavy joining, we required arc welding and the gas welding. In this arc welding and gas welding, again, if we do not have power supply at that time, we can use gas welding also. Okay. Resistance welding is the type of welding where we are not using filler metal. Only with the help of resistance to the current, we can generate a heat which converts metal into its plastic state, and then we apply pressure to create the joint. Then after that, two more processes of joining, that is soldering and the brazing. The two processes we have seen in today's lecture. So with this, we have
सर हे लेक्चर
completed.
पण तुम्ही कंटिन्यू करणार आहेत?
झालंय जवळजवळ. If you required, we will continue next chapter. Otherwise, we will see what to do.
Complete, sir.
सर झाले डायग्राम.
झाले. ओके.
हो सर.
वन मोर डायग्राम आय विल शो. 1 सेकंड बघूया खाली काय लिहायचं आहे त्याच्यामध्ये. ओके, हे तर लिहायचं आहे पण अगोदर डायग्राम काढून घेऊ आणि मग लिहू. So this diagram. दिसते डायग्राम?
Yes, sir.
ही एक डायग्राम काढून घ्या, छोटीशी आहे. बऱ्याच वेळा त्या डायग्राम मधून समजत नाही कारण ती व्हर्टिकल पाईप आहेत एखादी एक. ते काही वेळेला रेकग्नाइज होत नाही लगेच, म्हणून ही दुसरी काढून घ्यायची साईडला. हे फ्लॅट वर्क प्लेट्स आहेत, वर्क पीसच्या प्लेट्स आहेत. झाले?
नो सर.
झालं सर.
ओके, झाले सगळ्यांचे?
Yes, sir.
Write down this difference in soldering and brazing. ओव्हर.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I think instead of starting new chapter, we will stop here. What is your opinion?
विषय stop, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
अजून थोडा वेळ आहे आपल्याकडे, 20 एक मिनिटं आहेत. जर कोणाला काही शंका असतील तर विचारा, नसेल तर आपण इथे थांबू.
Sir,
सर असाइनमेंटचं कसं सर?
येस.
या चॅप्टरच्या
Sir,
असाइनमेंट
assessment.
असेसमेंट काय असाइनमेंट?
असाइनमेंट सर.
हा, असाइनमेंट जे आहे ते त्या दोन्ही सेम लिहायचे आहेत, जशा पाठीमागच्या चॅप्टरच्या लिहिल्या आपण. ओके, तशी सेम याची लिहायची आहे.
सर पेपरला एकच चॅप्टर असणार.